Anovir the Elder sat alone in his tower, surrounded by the chaos of a lifetime of ancient books and scrolls scattered about his study. It seemed not so long ago he was but a young apprentice, full of spirit and a desire to do good in this world, to leave his mark. Now, nearly a century later, that young apprentice needs the aid of his powerful magic to keep his hands from trembling as he frantically writes these abyssal, demonic notes into a blackened tome. His wrinkled fingers trace the lines of ancient text with a reverence bordering on obsession, his clouded eyes glinting with a feverish intensity as he pores over the sacred secrets inscribed within. He is impatient, desperate, for he knows his time is short. He mutters under his breath with nearly every word, "Why did I wait so long? Why such struggle to commit? Yes, how convenient it would be for them were I to just die quietly in my bed an old man. I have so much yet to see, so much yet to do. Curse them. Let me be inconvenient." He knew being the most powerful wizard in the realm was meaningless when time, with its incessant march, casts its long, shadowy cloak upon you. But Anovir is not ready to leave this mortal coil. For decades, he sought the means to unlock the secrets of immortality, to transcend the limitations of his mortal form. And now, with this dark potion, he stands on the precipice of binding his soul to eternity and locking immense and profane dark powers. Surrounded by the foul stench of brimstone, blood, and decay, he can feel the blackness growing in his heart with every passing moment. And so, with trembling hands, he raised the vial and its gloomy contents to his mouth, whispering ancient incantations and calling upon abyssal powers that he could scarcely comprehend. The air around him crackled with demonic energy, and the walls of his laboratory trembled with the force of the abyssal magic now at hand. He then spoke his final words as a mortal. There is no cost too great when the alternative is nothingness. He fought his body's natural reaction to purge this mephitic concoction as it burned of acid within his mouth, taking bits of flesh with it as the foul sludge found its way to his soul. The ritual now complete, Anovir felt a surge of grim abyssal power coursing through his body. His eyes, once clouded with age, decayed into dust. Yet he now saw with an unholy light as he looked upon the world with newfound clarity, with newfound purpose. His flesh withered and contorted into a twisted mockery of its former self, but he cared not for the pain, nor the monstrous visage that he now bore. His old form, even the name, Anovir, felt meaningless, unwanted, unnecessary. Outside his tower, the skies darkened, and a chill wind swept through the land, carrying with it the stench of hate, indifference, and death. And now, an immortal, he spoke his first words. Villanir, Villanir Everdark. The Lich smiled, knowing the mark of his ascension was complete, and that this realm would write stories of the treachery that would soon unfold. Welcome, adventurers. I'm Rich, and this is Riches and Liches, where it's all things Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing. It is once again lore time at RNL as we continue with part 2 of our special edition of the Riches and Liches RPG lore show, the Lich Lore Epic. I want to thank everyone for the wonderful comments that we received on episode 1. In case you missed it, episode 1 greatly detailed the real-world origins of the Lich from a myriad of cultural, religious, and mythological tales that span the world and centuries of history. Today, we continue our archaeological discovery, digging deep into the vast and rich in-game lore this truly legendary villain brings to the RPG universe. We have so much to discuss. We will primarily explore the ghastly process by which one transforms into this unholy entity, the ritual of Lichdom, the odious bargains and treacherous pacts that must be made, the ancient evil spirits and aberrations that must be consecrated, and the near impossible process by which the secrets of Lichdom must be discovered and the horrific ritual that must be sourced and completed. And of course, we will touch upon the malefic container that's required to ensure the immortality of a Lich's soul, the Phylactery. I should note here that the Phylactery, one of the best plot and campaign devices in all of tabletop gaming, deserves its own episode, and we'll get exactly that in episode 3, where we will not only discuss this evil artifact at length, but provide several custom homebrew Phylacteries and even some adventure hooks you can lift directly or use to inspire your next Lich encounter. All that said, we will certainly touch upon the Phylactery today, as it's critical to the lore and the ritual of Lichdom, but just keep in mind that in episode 3, we're going to go far deeper and we get to lean into some really fun homebrew creations. Just a quick reminder before we start, if you're liking what you see and want to reward the time and effort I put into these videos, I'm brand new to the YouTube space, run no ads, and would love for you to sub and ring that bell to help out an aspiring content provider. Are you prepared to venture forth after our short rest from episode 1? Are you ready to unlock the 5 decades old ritual mysteries of Lichdom? You are brave indeed. Okay, then you are ready. Let us venture forth into this shadowy realm. In episode 1, we discussed the real-world origins of the Lich, going back centuries. While the inception of this evil undead sorcerer from an in-game perspective cannot claim quite the same historic legacy or pedigree, we would be remiss if we did not start today's discussion by showing proper respect and spend just a little time discussing the very introduction of the Lich within the Dungeons & Dragons universe before we delve into the depths of the Lichdom ritual. The very first mentions of the Lich were found in Gary Gygax's 1975 supplement Greyhawk, but details were scant. The Lich would be further expanded upon in the 1976 supplement Eldritch Wizardry, written by Brian Bloom, an early business partner of Gary Gygax, in the forming of Tactical Studies Rules, better known by you and me as TSR. Eldritch Wizardry brought some additional clarity to the Lich, such as the potential for psionic abilities and attacks, but the Lich as a creature type was still shrouded in mystery. It should be noted that Eldritch Wizardry is also where the first mention of the legendary Lich Vecna can be found, detailing the hand and eye from the future granddaddy of Liches as 2 artifacts of great power. The Lich made its first introduction as an actual monster type in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons AD&D version of the game, first appearing in the 1977 Monster Manual. Those of you that know what FACO is, that's 2-hit AC 0, or if you know how to calculate a negative armor class, yeah, that would be you. You'd be right at home in the sometimes cryptic but still great advanced version of the original D&D game. The AD&D version of the game is also where we find the very first mention of a Phylactery, although at this point in time, no real details were given. I can only imagine how confusing that would have been to someone playing D&D for the first time back then. While there exists a host of variant looks and forms for the Lich today, the first edition of the AD&D game introduced RPG gaming to the first and most traditional look of the Lich, depicted as a powerful undead skeletal creature and usually wearing the tattered remains of a wizard's robe or potentially a crown of some sort. This is the image of the dreaded Lich that still lives on today and is considered a classic. As most players are likely aware, but just in case for those who are not, the Lich requires a Phylactery, which is a powerful artifact, a container if you will, designed solely for the purpose of holding and protecting the Lich's soul, and with that, the Lich's immortality. A Phylactery is typically a valuable metal box, or perhaps even a vial of some sort, but as you'll learn as we move into part 3 of this series, where all we do is talk about the Phylactery, this is a home brewer's dream, but I'm not spoiling that today. You're just going to have to wait and check it out in episode 3. We'll just leave it at the fact that you don't have to make it a box or a vial. So you're a high-level wizard or some other powerful caster, and you want to become a Lich. I won't even ask why, but how does one achieve this level of immortality? Well, for decades and many versions of the game, that process was shrouded in mystery and a general lack of details. And I gotta tell you, I'm actually pretty happy that that's the case, as it lets the Dungeon Master create the epic and arduous journey that must be completed. But we do have clues and fragments, lots of them. So let's piece together what we know from the early versions leading all the way up to the 5th edition of the game. Initially, back in 2E or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, some basic information was laid out. The target of the Lich process must be a powerful 18th level caster. There were also some indications in some of the supplements like Dragon Magazine that it could even be done at 14th level, but generally 18th level, a high level caster, typically a wizard back then, could be a cleric as well. A Phylactery is required, and it must be worth at least 1,500 gold. A combination of powerful spells would be cast upon the Phylactery to make it worthy of holding the Lich's most prized possession, its soul. One thing that really was not covered in 2E, I like to believe this was done on purpose as a brilliant stroke of genius, is the most critical part. You see, you don't get to just say, oh, I just dinged 18th level, here's my 1,500 gold, make me a Lich. No sir, discovering the actual secrets of the Lichdom ritual is the near impossible task, and certainly back in the early days of Dungeons & Dragons, and in my opinion even today, those secrets still reside, at least in part, in the knowledge archive of your local favorite dungeon master. So yes, you must be an incredibly powerful magic caster, but the perilous quests and journey that lie ahead to obtain this secret ritual is intended to take years, maybe a lifetime, and is different for every would-be Lich. As a DM, this is very important to understand. If one of your players wants to become a Lich, there's no Lichdom for Dummies book at the local library. The secrets are guarded and prized by powerful beings, such as Orcus, the demon prince of the undead, or perhaps some homebrewed ancient deity or an ancestral spirit that is connected to your adventure, campaign, or realm. As a dungeon master, guiding a player character through this dark and twisted path to becoming a Lich should be very challenging, yet ultimately a rewarding narrative arc for your campaign. Lichdom is not for the faint of heart, and it usually requires a character to embrace evil and commit unspeakable acts to achieve this level of immortality. Yes, there are good Liches too. We'll touch on those a little later, but they're rare indeed and, in my opinion, kind of go off script from what the Lich was intended to be. No, the true beauty of the secretive process of Lichdom as a creative plot device for your adventures is partly based upon the fact that the Lichdom ritual is not explicitly detailed in the core rulebooks, which only adds creative license for you to go wild with amazing encounters and tales that can be specifically tailored and unique to every character. But that's not to say there's no information to get you started. We do have a decent framework from which you can build. Information gleaned across 5 decades of source material and supplements and magazines. Let's break it down. Discovering the secrets of Lichdom. This first step is the most ambiguous, as it should be. It's a black box for dungeon masters to create those very epic adventures and interactions. The aspiring Lich must first acquire ancient, secret, and highly guarded knowledge of the dark arts and forbidden lore that is required to make such a transformation. This should involve multiple, lengthy steps. Each step of this journey should be difficult and fraught with peril, deceit, and cost. These journeys might include delving into an ancient ruin on consecrated grounds, communicating with the dead or the abyssal layers or the infernal hells or the high heavens, traveling to another plane, beseeching Orcus or an archdevil and swearing fealty to serve them in your unlife. It may take years, maybe even decades of your character's life, all with no promise of success. You might need to discover ancient writings hidden within secret tomes, maybe on the material plane, maybe on another plane entirely. You must consult with other powerful beings that hold this secret knowledge. And any being that has this knowledge, that has this power, they know the value. They know what they got. They will never give it freely. So a bargain must be made, and the price is never cheap. So you can be sure that parting with this knowledge is both costly and self-serving for that entity. What type of costs, you ask? Extreme. Not just gold and treasure, power, influence. Perhaps years of servitude to this dark entity are required, performing a series of monumental tasks to prove your worth. The mortal and perhaps even immortal cost is very high. All this just to gain access to the secret knowledge. And a note for dungeon masters. Remember, misinformation is often parlayed by the most unscrupulous on the mortal realm and even off the material planes. Other Liches will often misdirect or spread false information. After all, the fewer rivals the better. Indeed, from villains, swindlers, and con artists looking for a quick coin to the very demons, devils, and gods themselves, this prized knowledge is often parlayed into gains from the gullible and naive. So players be wary and dungeon masters be witness. Okay, but let's say that you do finally gain access to these secrets. You have spent years making morally questionable choices and succeeded in some very challenging encounters, all in service of just acquiring these secret rituals. What are they? What is contained within? Well, if you ask me, it's a content creator's dream. Understanding the principles of phylacteries. How are they created? How are they enchanted? How are they protected? What ancient spells must be cast? And in what order and under what conditions? And what are the chances of success? How is the soul transferred into the phylactery? What assistance is required from the powerful sponsor or patron or spirit or deity to make it possible? And what is that cost? And this is all just step one. Now that you have that knowledge, what's next? Well, first of all, you need to acquire a phylactery. This artifact is the container for the Lich's very soul, providing it with immortality. The aspiring Lich must craft or obtain a suitable phylactery, no easy task in and of itself, often involving rare and expensive materials, powerful spells, or perhaps even a powerful relic. The phylactery must be imbued with these dark enchantments to protect it from harm and enable it to contain the character's soul, along with any special attributes to further ensure its safekeeping. As I said at the opening, there is a ton to unpack here, all of which we are covering at length in episode 3. I think my favorite episode of this series. Okay, so you have up to this point perhaps spent years on a difficult journey. You've gained the knowledge, you've studied the rituals, and finally created and enchanted the phylactery. Now what? Now you create a potion that will transform your body into an undead lich while preserving your immortal soul. But this is no potion of healing you can buy in your local village apothecary or magic shop, not by a long shot. In fact, you cannot buy this anywhere. It must be created by you and used only by you. The creation of this potion, like everything else involved in this ritual, is a difficult and time-consuming task. How difficult? You have no idea. And this is where we have to tread a little lightly, to be frank. Use some caution and follow your session 0, because through the many versions of the game, the Dragon Magazine articles that outline some of this, there was a time when the ingredient list for this potion was, shall we say, not politically correct by today's cultural standards. And I do want to pause here and just say, I really went down a rabbit hole in my attempt to get all of the details on the Lichdom process. One of the beauties of doing this is I'm talking about something that's very interesting to me, so I tend to spend more time on it and become pretty well versed, and I learned some things that I didn't know. This included going through a ton of back issues of Dragon Magazine, and wow. I mean, the article I am mostly referring to here is called Blueprint for a Lich. It was located in Dragon Magazine, issue number 26, on page 36. I believe it was 1979. So we're talking a very long time ago. And I'll just say it's a very interesting read that, if published today, would likely end up on Twitter. But I also found some fascinating information about the writer of that article, a longtime contributor to TSR as a playtester, an adventure writer, and a friend to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, who just happened to sadly pass away just a few years ago. If you've ever heard of the module The Secret of Bone Hill, or the spell Leomund's Tiny Hut, yeah, I thought that might get you, then you might find this man as interesting as I did. His name was Lin Lakofka. I hope I said that properly. And I think I'll be doing a Riches and Liches short on him in the future. I just need to do some more research, make sure I got his name pronounced correctly. But I'm going to do an episode for sure. It'll be a short, but if that interests you, keep an eye out for that. Okay, getting back on track, the potion itself often contains rare, horrible, and dangerous ingredients, and the potion's creation may require powerful necromantic rituals and the involvement of the evil extraplanar entity that I've been referring to throughout this episode. In preparation for this episode, I spent an inordinate amount of time looking through not only all the official core books, but also the dozens of Dragon Magazine articles to compile an ingredient list. The ingredient variants are far too numerous to list here, but I did want to throw a few out there along with why they might be used in this particular potion. Powdered bone of a powerful undead creature. The powdered bone of, say, a vampire or a wight could serve as the potent necromantic reagent needed in this potion. The heart of a virgin humanoid, a common trope in dark rituals if ever one existed, but the heart of a virgin humanoid would intend to serve as a powerful catalyst for the transformation process itself. Essence of a Shadowfell creature. The essence of a creature native to the Shadowfell, such as a shadow or a wraith, would imbue the potion with the dark energies from that plane. Dark water, a rare and dangerous liquid found in the deepest parts of the Underdark, dark water would serve as the base for the potion, binding all of the other ingredients together. Ground powdered unicorn horn. Not making this up, I really found this. I'm not sure what purpose this would serve other than to prove you are utterly evil, confirming your abandonment of any vestige of humanity because unicorns are awesome. And finally, vial of mummy rot. Mummy rot is a powerful curse that can be harvested from mummies, and adding it to a potion might strengthen the connection between the character becoming a lich and its new association with the undead. Note that while this sample compilation is from all various different sources, as the DM you would create your own list of applicable reagents for your campaign, and then most of these, if not all, were intended to be sourced by the would-be lich and not bought in a local apothecary. Literally each of these can and perhaps should be a quest of some sort. Remember, there are powerful beings that would try to oppose the success of this ritual to begin with. So you would be justified at this point in asking, are we there yet? And the answer is, sadly, no, we're not. Hey, no one ever said it was going to be easy. This is supposed to be an exclusive, members-only club. With the exception of the Archlich, which is a weirdly named good lich, the aspiring lich must now commit an act of sacrifice. This is basically a significant act of evil or sacrifice to complete their transformation, and would most generally be either at the request of, say, the dark entity that they have a pact with that granted access to the secrets in the first place, like Orcus, for example, or, and this is really up to the DM, it could be part of the secret ritual text that they find or that they work through a consecrated spirit, something like that. As a horrific example of this type of sacrifice, the aspiring lich could be asked or tasked to kill one of his former party members or a friend or a loved one. The idea here is it must be personal, because the whole point of the sacrifice is that it should clearly represent the character's complete abandonment of their humanity and the full embrace of the evil that is the immortal life of a lich. See, and you wondered why all liches are so testy. They have seen and done stuff, man. Okay, now we're finally ready for the actual ritual of Lichdom. With the Phylactery, the potion, and sacrifice complete, the character must then perform the dark ritual to transfer their soul into the Phylactery and complete their transformation into a lich. We are now in full-blown homebrew territory, so really the sky, or Hades, is the limit. The ritual may require the character to recite ancient incantations, perform some type of rite or sacrifice, or open a portal to the abyssal or the infernal plane. Really, totally up to you as the DM. The ritual is supposed to be dangerous and may attract the attention of powerful enemies, so the character must be prepared to defend themselves and the phylactery that they're carrying. And the Dungeon Master should make this kind of the final encounter, the final test of the aspirant. Once the ritual task and final encounter is complete, the transformation then begins. With the green light from whatever dark entity you bargained with, you will consume the potion of transformation and undergo the painful process of becoming a lich. Your body will wither and decay, your soul will be trapped within the phylactery, and you will emerge as an undead creature of immense power and malevolence. Being a newborn lich, though, is not without its perks. For one, immortality. As an undead creature, you no longer age and will be immune to death from old age. This grants the potential for an eternal existence, allowing you to accumulate vast knowledge and power over time. You also gain immunities. As those that have fought a Lich know, Liches are immune to many conditions and damage types, including poison, exhaustion, and charm. They're also immune to cold, lightning, and necrotic damage, and completely immune to non-magical physical attacks. Liches also gain regeneration. If a Lich's physical form is destroyed and its Phylactery remains intact, the Lich will regenerate near its Phylactery within 1d10 days. This makes them extremely difficult to destroy permanently. Liches also retain all of their former spellcasting abilities from their previous life as the powerful wizard or cleric, whatever they were. This also allows them to wield a wide array of new spells, making them versatile and dangerous. Of course, they gain paralyzing touch and frightening gaze, and legendary and lair actions. As a DM, if you do allow a character to become a Lich, you would want to work with them to create some legendary actions and assist them to craft a lair with its own powerful lair actions. Again, just one more example of how amazing the homebrew content creation is with the Lich. And now for the disclaimer label. Remember that pursuing Lichdom can have significant consequences for any player character, as they will become an evil-aligned undead creature. This transformation may cause friction within the party and attract the attention of powerful adversaries. As the Dungeon Master, please make sure your players understand the risks and consequences of pursuing Lichdom before embarking on this dark journey. You know, I've always thought it would be fun to have a campaign with a player character Lich who would be introduced unbeknownst to the player group later in the campaign for a massive fight. I realize this is probably way better on paper than how it would actually play out, but it is and shall remain a cool concept in my head. And that completes part 2 of our legendary journey together. Part 3 will detail at great length my personal favorite aspect of the Lich, its Phylactery and all the homebrew goodness that lies within, including some cool out-of-the-ordinary Phylactery creations and adventure hooks. I do hope you will join me in that discussion. If you like what you hear, perhaps like and subscribe to help us grow the channel and produce even more D&D and tabletop RPG content. Riches and Liches was created to serve you and the amazing Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing community. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed sharing, but tell me what you think and comment down below. I hope to see you in part 3. Until then, remember, the only limitation at your table is your imagination.